What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers. Subscribe to our Patreon free for behind-the-scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. This last week has been fascinating, and it's interesting the way one puzzle piece can change all the other puzzles you've been working with. But today, because I'm fried, and I don't think we're gonna get this perfect, or even close to perfect, but we're zooming in on my shadow today, or feelings I have about myself somewhat consciously, probably to a much greater extent unconsciously. And we talk about all these different people in your head, and I still think my shadow, quotes, is a woman. Baddest bitch in the land. But I've noticed I hate myself. Not on a conscious level. On a conscious level, I like myself quite a lot. But you look at yourself and the way you feel, the things you like, and it's hard not to notice some kind of negative self something going on there. And in speaking with this woman, still not dating, still not planning to, but at this point, I can't walk away from her. For myself and for her, but mostly for myself, despite the way I'll frame it and the way I'll mean it, which we'll get to. We've broken into a weird space, or a weird level of existence, level of consciousness, that maybe always felt was there, but I felt certain I'd never see. And now that we're here, I have no idea what to do or what's going to happen. But one benefit of maintaining a good relationship with your shadow is your shadow will usually have some answer for you. Maybe not the answer, but an answer. When your conscious mind is as fried as mine is right now. And her answer is to get sharper, get harder. You can always be sharper, feel harder. Which is important because I walked into work today still somewhat in this wanting to get along and feeling a little more magic in the world state. And that got emotionally beaten out of me the moment this day kicked off. And that was a nice reminder of why you don't neglect your shadow. You don't get comfortable. You don't hope for better. So after a fair application of black powder, we're back in it. But I did a lot of thinking. One of the things I've been asking this woman to do is hurt me emotionally using truths. That way, well, it accomplishes two things at once. One, I don't get too attached to her, or I can feel as much attachment as I want, but I still have my gun at my hip. And also, so if there is a way I can be mortally wounded emotionally, it'll happen in a safe environment instead of when you can't afford to hesitate or to feel hurt by something. As in, I walked into work today and people are wary around me, and I like that. Mostly because I'm a pussy pushover, but that sort of wariness stops problems before they even try to become problems. And today I walked into work, and people can smell vulnerability on you. And someone said some mean shit, and because my heart was all tender still, I froze up, and I felt like a defenseless child again. my only recourse was to stand there and want to cry and wonder why they're being mean. When under normal circumstances, one, that wouldn't have happened in the first place, and two, I would have been able to deal with it. Human society does not want life to feel worth living. And it's your responsibility as a member of society to make other people's lives also not feel worth living. They aren't worth decency. But see, the thing is, I'm not worth decency either. Getting back into getting this woman to shoot me to death emotionally. In the first volley, maybe she was being nice or holding back, but only one thing hurt me. And it feels like that happened by accident, as in that was not the thing intended to hurt me the way it hurt me. As in, she referred to some other guy as just some jerk who's horny for her. And that ended up hurting me in a ricochet way because that's the way I feel about myself in relation to her. And whenever you feel anything, you need to analyze it. Why did that hurt me? Because it's true. At the base of everything. All these other layers, higher emotional layers, narratives, tendernesses, all these things are real. But they are subordinated to the foundation, and the foundation is ugly, and part of that foundation is I'm just some jerk who's horny for her. And we mentioned the baseliner shadow is everything about yourself you're afraid of, everything you hate about the world that exists in yourself, and you don't want to acknowledge it, you want to repress it, you don't want anyone to know it's there. And the more uncomfortable it is, the truer it is, and also the more important it is. And if it's so tender, just a glancing blow off it can get a rise out of you. You probably need to do something about it as soon as you can, because it's bubbling and boiling, and if you don't take conscious action for it or with it, it'll take over at some point. Now, I view this, or these, thinking about it, it's probably id, in the Freudian sense. And I imagine it as this awful little goblin, and it's painful because it is at the base of everything. And it feels like the poison and parasite of purity. Because if you tried to let this goblin run around without any clothes or masks, you'd be killed, and you deserve to be killed. So awful is this thing. So what does it do? It wears the clothes, it wears the masks. But I hate it even more because it's not just faking. It disguises itself, the foundation disguises itself with these layers of abstractions and emotions and customs. And the thing is, all these layers are real. You do feel these things. You do participate in these narratives. These things do matter to you. Because if they didn't, then they wouldn't be as effective at hiding the goblin underneath. And ultimately, no matter how you feel about all these layers, they are subordinated to the goblin. The goblin is the one calling the shots. And I hate that baser... It's a core of sin. And it's what I am at my foundations. My truest self is a core of everything awful. Everything a person should be punished for. And also is exactly what you hate other people for. And this isn't simple projection, as in you're imagining these traits in other people. everyone is a goblin deep down. And I'm realizing I have a serious problem with that. Maybe the clone Jake from my dreams was torturing, a psychopath was torturing, was this goblin that deserves punishment. Unconsciously and a little bit consciously, I feel my truest self doesn't deserve to exist and deserves punishment for continuing to exist. It deserves punishment for existing at all. It deserves even more punishment for doing the ugly things the world requires you to do to survive. And it's important when I say existence alone is a sin. Existence alone deserves punishment for being what you are. Because on this foundational level, your shadow. For me, bad bitch. She's like solar flares. She is a collection of sins in motion. She's the most active, she's the most realized, she has the most personality. And I was thinking the other day, I don't remember if it was in yesterday's notes or today's notes, but maybe one of the reasons I had such a physical negative reaction to this sociopath woman was, well, shadow person, because that's what we've established, or that's our operating model of what sociopaths are, is shadow inversions. My shadow doesn't like me talking to some other fucking shadow. Maybe that's what's going on. And I say that only half as a joke, because I do think these are real people in your head. That's your shadow, that's the apparition you know, but the movement that constitutes her comes from this core of all evil. And it's interesting because it has its own layers too. As in, I was thinking about my feelings about this woman. We aren't together, we will never be together, but we're going to continue talking, and we're in this heightened consciousness state. I'm not just freaked out and fried because I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. It is all of those things, but it's also the fact, if I don't know any of that stuff, then I'm afraid of my core having just doing awful things. And I think that's why I'm trying to get her to hurt me emotionally. It's so this goblin deep down inside, maybe my conscious self will take most of the fire, but some of those bullets will go through and shoot that little bastard in the head and kill it, so it won't act, or it'll stay in line, or it'll get some of the punishment it deserves, maybe. Because I can think of a few basic sins that underneath all of this high-level consciousness shit, this purity, this love, this attempted re-sparking of innocence, underneath all of that, the worst, most basic sins are operating. Examples. In the beginning, yes, we did have a magnetic connection, a mystical connection, but a lot of that was lust. And even now that we've established that we're unable to connect sexually, I'm physically unable to lust for her, but some deep undercurrent is still lusting. Another thing is coveting. I know that she's connected with other people, and I don't like it, on a level that can't be reasoned with. Now again, on these higher layers, I recognize that not only will I not possess anything here, there's nothing to possess in the way I normally try to possess things. And furthermore, although we are consciously accepting we are speaking with her selfishly because we like speaking with her, we're still also trying to prioritize her needs, which, again, it's not like that's an especially good thing, even on a conscious level, because I like doing that selfishly. But there is nothing here to make this covetousness work, or there's nothing for it to sink its talons in, yet I'm still coveting. One of the things I asked her to do was just to tell me about people she knows, people she speaks with, people she feels some kind of intimate connection with. Tell me about it. So I can take a buckshot to my goblin and recognize that you're not getting what you want. I am asking you to kill that part of me by hurting me there badly. And once again, this feels like a normal person wouldn't be feeling this way or would have some better way of dealing with it. But my covetousness is so intense and so irrational and so foundational. The only way to deal with it is to mutilate it. And this whole goblin thing is painful because, again, it's not just these specific, although basic, fundamental primal sins. It's all evil. A deeply uncomfortable thing to do is to realize you have within you all of humanity's evils. All of it is inside you. And I think that's why mutilation is my approach to dealing with myself. And these days it's emotional, but you go back in the day, I used to cut myself a lot. And it was the cuts were never deep, but they were expansive. I want a few points in my life I would cut lots and lots and lots of little cuts every single place I could reasonably cut. So I would hurt when I showered, I would hurt when I moved, I would hurt when I wore clothes, I would hurt when I sat still, I would hurt when I sweat. Constant stinging. And I felt better when I was doing it, and I felt better when it was done and I was experiencing the consequences of it, because I felt like I was doing to myself what I deserved. And back then, I don't think I would have been able to have articulated it very well, but this is what I was doing. You contain within you all evil. You don't deserve to exist because by existing, you corrupt creation. So, if you're going to be here, you aren't going to resolve the issue. And to be clear, we're never going to resolve the issue. This is all theoretical and abstraction. The least you can do is make it clear to yourself what an affront your existence is to anything good. And even though that has mostly gone into the background, it's still there. Clearly it's still there. And again, you can see it, and I can see it clearer now in the way I deal with myself, which is mutilation of all sorts. And see, I don't think that's something that's going to change or that can change in the traditional bullshit approaches. As in, there's no learning to love yourself because this core will never go away. You're human, this is what you are. And, or maybe when I say love yourself, I mean it the way retards usually mean it, which is acting like looking at the bright side and doing nice things will make this core go away and then you'll feel better. That's not going to happen. That core is never going away. What you are, deep down inside, your truest self, is an ugly, awful thing. Mutilating it is preferable to trying to go the happy horseshit route, because that happy horseshit route is pure repression. At least with the mutilation, you're engaging with it and acknowledging it. Now, it's interesting that this goblin thing came to mind, because we do know how to deal with the shadow now. Or at least we know how to deal with it better than we ever have before, which is integrating it. And that's something I thought about. Imagining going goblin mode, as in, instead of hating yourself for feeling these basic primal sins, how do you feel when you imagine living them, engaging in them, purely in this simple and purely evil way? Just imagine it. I found it felt pretty good, as it usually does when you embrace your shadow. There are elements to shadow work. Revulsion, fear is one side of it. Energy, when you experiment with integrating it, is another. And I felt clear energy when I imagined going goblin mode. Imagining simple, selfish, lusting feels good. Imagining coveting and possessing beyond all reasonability and morality and rationality feels really good. Treating other people or challenges like objects feels really good. This basic, sinful, oh, it's so awful idea that you are the only person in existence that matters. Everything else exists to serve or to entertain or to distract or to pick on, victim, you. Meaning when somebody comes to you expecting to be treated like a human, you imagine smashing their face in with a hammer and showing them and yourself and proving that they are nothing but matter. You are the only soul in existence, and the idea of anything otherwise is a challenge. It's disrespectful to your existence, and you need to show these people that they are clay. They're just matter. And see, it's energizing because this is how you feel deep down. This is how your truest self feels. And these basic sins, when you choose to engage with them, even in Fantasyland, feel so much realer and feel so much more important and gratifying than any of these other true but lesser layers do. And this is part of shadow integration. Once you realize and accept not what you're afraid of or afraid you could be, but accepting what you are, things can start to change. And I'm using these interactions with this woman and this, or the few videos we have in this new sociopath arc, or sociopath era, as my examples here. I think we did something good with the last video. That's probably the first time, between that video and this emotional or consciousness level I've achieved with this woman. This is the best thing that's happened in a long time that I've felt this good about in a long time. A pure, quotes, innocent maybe quotes pure, optimistic feeling. But that purity is tainted not by the fear, but by the factual knowledge there's a goblin underneath it all who wants to figure out how to use this success, this grand achievement, for something ugly. And in fact, is already using it for ugly things. This huge, big, positive achievement that it feels miraculous, this miracle, is already tainted. And was tainted from the very beginning. And was it tainted by other people? No, it's tainted by you because that's what you are. You are basically impure. Now, I recognize the way to overcome this feeling is to accept it. Yes, this was not pure. It isn't pure, and I'm not pure. And I like that. I like the power that doing this gave me. Better able to possess. Better able to covet, to lust, to wrath. I like that this pure thing that I wanted to love on a pure level served this goblin, which is me, brilliantly in the pursuit of these awful, basically awful things that I want because that's what I am. And we've got a nice process for doing shadow work. I know that once I accept that and I let go of whatever this other idea of what things were, what things could be, was, it'll evolve again. But I think this entire video, we're trying to make 2 points here. One, you are basically and totally impure. Well, no, you're not totally impure, because you have layers that are pure, but they're all in service to a core, to a foundation that is basically impure, basically corrupting, basically awful. Everything what you are deep down inside is everything that makes life not worth living. And things that do make life worth living come from anywhere but from you. That's painful to deal with. And also knowing that you are an essential part of what you hate most about this existence, which is human nature. You are, at your core, every single thing you hate most, and there's not anything you can do about that other than try to find a way to protect other people from yourself, maybe. Again, I don't know what to do with this yet. I'm sure the viewers are geniuses. Sure, they'll have answers. But then this second thing, what are you supposed to do with your life? Because it's not like you're just the goblin. The layers, as I said, are true. You're a combination of the layers and your foundation. But the foundation is the only thing that will remain if a flood comes and washes away all the layers. So what you're walking around as right now is a you who is largely informed by the truest you, but isn't the truest you. You are a problem you can't fix and survive. I mean, the sort of answer feels obvious because we've been working shadow work for a while. It is become the thing you fear. That's always the answer. It's recognize this terrible thing, get over your fear, accept the terrible thing and deal with it however you want to, and then become the terrible thing. The becoming is always the answer. And you always realize, however bad you feel at present about this dreadful thing you are, once you're it, once you've integrated it, once you've become it, you realize it's not so bad, even though it is so awful. It's weird the way that works. This all feels silly because the answer is clear. It's right there. What we're dealing with here is more a matter of what do you do if that's not what you want to do? And that doesn't even feel like a question because this is what needs to be done. What you do is get over it and walk into the meat grinder. But that raises another question that I'm dealing with. Is there another way to do this? Probably. But it's the way of doing it, not the what. The end result will always be becoming this thing. But what this woman showed me is there are other ways of achieving the same goal that might not involve this degree of mutilation. But I don't know, we're gonna have to find out. It's weird, when I was thinking about, I feel like we're missing a bunch of stuff, and we probably are. When I was thinking about this video, I was really stressed out, but now that we sat down and hammered it out, the Goblin isn't that bad. I mean, it's dreadful. It's everything awful, but you do enough shadow work. It's not, once you get there. Once you've gotten to a point, you can look at it and accept it. Becoming it is just the next step. I don't know what this hang-up is. It's probably method. I think I have some kind of issue with the method by which I do things. My problem is I don't know another way to do things that works. Everybody has all these bullshit ideas and none of them work. But occasionally, well, no, not occasionally, there are other answers. But you don't find them the way you normally find them. Presently, I'm dealing with the fact I don't like what I am, that I am incapable of this purity. The answer is to accept it and become the fact of this impurity, which once we do that, this will no longer be a problem, but I'll also no longer be this person, and then that'll open up a new problem. I think I was hoping something in my core would be different, or the world would be different, or I would realize something about the world that would make things different. Maybe this is the way to frame it. The ideal outcome is feeling good about everything and being able to interact with the world and survive and do well, using methods I feel good about and overall feeling good about everything. And I think that is a state that can exist, that can be achieved. I mean, it's so far out there, it's mythic. But I think it is there, but I have no idea how to get there. Because down here, it's all cycles of doing bad and feeling bad and then feeling worse and doing worse. Maybe that's why these sociopaths are so fascinating. Their path, structured similarly, path leads them upward instead of downward, maybe. Maybe that's where the fascination comes from. I don't know, but I think we are entering the sociopath era. I have a few videos I want to make about them, thinking about them, talking about them, exploring them. And yeah, I did a bunch of reviewing mentally, and I think the most important people in my life have been sociopaths. And I made the mistake of thinking that behavior was an ENTJ thing, because most of them are ENTJs. And it's funny because, again, looking back, there is a lot of overlap between sociopathic behavior and ENTJs, but there is a distinction. But maybe that's also why figuring out how to deal with sociopaths doesn't feel as alien, because in dealing with ENTJs, you are as an INTP dealing with your shadow. So there's a lot of skills translation here, cross training. I don't know. I don't know a lot of things right now. That's the if I could summarize life at the moment in 3 words, it would be I don't know. Actually, from where I'm standing, that's an interesting way to look at it because my shadow is structured as an ENTJ, so it's this ENTJ archetype, but it's also the shadow, as in what shadows are in a more general sense, so it's working overtime, and that would go even further to explain why there's this understanding and skills and integration overlap. The next question would be, why do they keep showing up in my life? Again, I don't know. That's why I'm saying I think this might be the beginning. This is not the end of an arc. This is potentially the beginning of an era. Nothing else going on is interesting or feels like it matters in any way. So we'll see what happens. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.